other activities we've been involved in. Okay, just some other activities we're involved in that we're supporting. So ISO chats are still continuing, and congratulations to the ISO chats team for carrying that on. And I was very excited to join the ISO chats symposium that they held a few weeks ago, which was a wonderful opportunity to catch up with colleagues across Australia and New Zealand. We're still having our standards workshops, and I saw Glenn and Mika here. So we're still providing a lot of support in terms of, and leadership in terms of teaching for tourism, hospitality and events. And then there's some others that will be mentioned in the reports. We have also, and I want to welcome Jess Sang-Yong from Griffith University, who has been recently appointed as our new PhD representative. I think this is really important, as you will see in the report that Paul is about to talk you through about our financial future. CAUTHE has a very high level of student membership, and therefore that's really important in terms of both, I mean, it has implications for how we operate, and also in terms of the services we provide our members. So we also have our two previous PhD student representatives involved in the executive as co-opted members. So I believe the student voice is very much representative on the executive, and we have some very exciting plans to support students, which you'll hear about, including the second joint SMANS, ANZELS and CAUTHE HDR conference, which has been posted on various social media and in our CAUTHE news, and is taking place in late August. So you'll hear a bit more about that later. I also realised, because I wrote it in the wrong place, that it's a little bit embarrassing, but I forgot to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands on which we are gathering today. And of course, I pay my respects to their ancestors, elders, past, present, and emerging. And please feel free to do the chat if you want to list your specific group or your local custodians if you want to acknowledge them. Here in Perth, it's the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation, but I acknowledge that obviously we're meeting across a whole range of different lands across Australia and New Zealand. Okay, that's my chair's report. Are there any questions or comments? In fact, I'm seeing a ton of comments coming up. I will just have a quick check through. Okay, I will take this brief silence as no questions and move on, because of time, to our next point on the agenda, which I'm also speaking a little bit to. We only have a few minutes, and this is about the AVDC consultation. So I expect most of our members are familiar with the AVDC's journal ranking list, which is widely used in business schools in Australia and also referred to in New Zealand and other countries. So the AVDC has a consultation out at the moment about the list itself and its construction and uses. This is not about actual rankings of journals. This is about the process through which the journal list is constructed and the consultation that's involved and who makes the decisions. So as part of CAUTHE's advocacy, we've consulted with the professoriate within CAUTHE to develop this draft response. And I especially want to thank Sarah Donica and Mariana Sigala, who actually drafted this response, because we did get quite divergent views, as you can imagine. People have very different views. So this document is now available for all members to comment on. So if you have any comments, please send them in. And actually, ideally, if you can use track changes, that would be helpful. If you can send them direct to me by close of business on Friday, the 6th of August, WA time. So for almost everyone on this call, this gives you loads of time on that day. And I'm also interested to know how far the list might be used by colleagues who are based outside of business schools, because it is a list for business schools. So I'm interested to know, if you're not in a business school, how far would the list be relevant to you? I'm going to hand over now to Sarah to just say a few words about the document here.
Yeah, thank you very much. I did want to say a few things. It was very difficult because really the views were quite divergent, but I wanted to just say a few things maybe of more general nature. As we put our submission in for this review, we need to keep in mind the role of this AVDC list. The role has never been to inform academics which publication outlets to choose, especially not ECRs, right? So the ABDC list, the primary purpose is for us as tourism researchers and for the tourism discipline not to be disadvantaged as opposed to other disciplines. So as a result of that, you might know the ABDC has percentage brackets that they prescribe or maximum limits of how many journals can be within each bracket. And you might have noticed that that's maxed out at the moment, right? So we have the maximum number in A star. That automatically means that they're not only the top leading journals. So please, as you communicate to everyone about this list, this is not a list that's meant to guide publication decisions. It's a list that is meant to help us as a field to make sure we are not disadvantaged. You know, we're always belittled, right? Every other discipline thinks we're cute and not really serious. So this is really important to us to establish our worth as we apply for grants, as we apply for promotion, as we apply for these things. For the review, just 3 key points. What we're trying to get out of this submission. One is it's really important to keep tourism in. We're one of the few lists in the world that has tourism as its own forecode. So if your institutions, if your universities put submissions in, that's the #1 game in town. There must be a specific code for tourism, right? The most important thing, everything else is minor. Secondly, a lot of the feedback we got to this was saying, oh yes, we should be using the H index, we should be using the impact factor, we should be using site score. We've taken a slightly different position at this point. So if you object, please do drop an email to CAUTHE about this. The reason we take a different position is because the value of our list is bigger if it's not just a copy, right? If all lists are 100% correlated, there is no added value of our list. Yeah. So the way we could list add value is actually to have a qualitative component where we rely more on expert opinion of quality rather than constantly massaging metrics, which by definition are imperfect, right? And I wanted to say on that occasion, keep in mind metrics are very different. So what the site score measures is quite different from the impact factor, is quite different from the H index. So these things are unfortunately ruling our lives, but we shouldn't be slaves of it. And I think also with this review of the list, we should take the liberty to say we actually trust experts to say what's a good journal and what's not. And I think that's it, yeah. Any questions? I'm happy to take questions. If we have time, we probably don't, I'm not sure.
We have 2 minutes.
If I may.
Yep.
Hello, everyone. Mariana. Thank you, Sarah and Kirsty again for all the cooperation on that document. I don't know how to express it. I totally agree with Sarah. The purpose of this list is not to advise not just early careers, but anyone where to publish. But I think we also need to realize that because of whatever politics or dynamics, because these lists are being adopted by countries, governments, or universities, even if we wish or not, when a university or a government accepts this list as a way to evaluate publications, whatever, for projects, for promotions, what you name it, then indirectly, you almost say to somebody where to publish. And I think that's why we need to be really careful in terms of what suggestions we're going to propose or how we are going to differentiate or make this ranking list value-added worldwide, because there are many countries, they do actually follow the Australia ranking. And we really need to ensure that, of course, the tourism hospitality journals, they maintain to have a representation and to be a quite holistic way to evaluate journals as well, not just the quantitative, but also the qualitative ones.
Great, thank you, Mariana. Thank you to both Mariana and Sarah, who've done the bulk of the work on this. I just sent around a few emails. As I said, if you have any feedback on this, before we send it in, please send that through to me directly or to the CAUTHE mailing list, and it will be passed on to me, and then we will incorporate that and we will submit that to the ABDC in mid-August. Thank you very much. So we now move on to the Treasurer's report, which is Paul Whitelaw, and he has provided a paper for you all to read, the CAUTHE Financial Understanding and Considerations, which, he has his Treasurer's report, and then he also has a financial report to talk through. So handing over to Paul now.
Thanks, Kirsten. Hi, everybody. I'm actually having to do this on my phone because we're having some internet issues. So I'll just be the voice with the photo in the background. In terms of the Treasurer's report, there's a couple of key things, particularly with regards to the paper. I'll assume that it's been read, but the sort of key messages that I want to convey with the paper, particularly in light of Kirsten's comments about standing down and having a new chair and the development of the strategic plan next year. So I was really keen to ensure that there's a very sort of thorough discussion about the financial aspects of the organisation. And to a lesser extent, I'm mindful of the ABDC listings exercise and how that will impact on the journal. So from the top, there's sort of four key messages that I hope to communicate in that paper. The first one is that it's not about the way we spend money; it's about the way we generate money. There are people who are better in tune with the needs of our members than me, and I'll always defer to them and their expertise in how we should be spending our money. But I just want to highlight how the money comes to us so that as we develop strategy, we're very mindful of that. So from the top, the first one is the journal. And as you can readily recognise, the journal provides both prestige and a significant income for the organisation. And clearly, that's something that we need to preserve and protect. The second thing is the relationship between membership and the conference. The funny thing is it's not funny, the idiosyncratic thing is that the membership is highly profitable for us, but it's driven by the conference, which is almost a lost leader. You'll notice that the conference is not a big money spinner for us. And so what we've got to keep balancing here is, yes, we've got to keep pushing for a conference because the conference is a key player in driving our memberships. The third thing, and this was discussed at our exec meeting, is you'll notice that the student membership is increasing. That's a fantastic investment for the future, which is terrific, but it does alert us to some of the financial implications of the level of support we give to students. And if the full fee-paying membership base shrinks a little bit and the student membership base grows, then that puts some pressure on our resources to provide support for the students. I'm not saying we don't, I'm just alerting everybody to that. And the fourth thing is the great growth opportunity for institutional and individual memberships through non-university members, either the TAFE colleges, the private hotel schools, and the other providers in the space. But if we do that, we've got to recognise that they are more attuned to the teaching and learning aspects rather than the research aspects. And so we need to give thought to the sort of benefit offerings to those members. And when the executive last met to discuss this, there were some excellent suggestions about some professional development activities around teaching and learning over and above the work that's been done on the Threshold Learnings project. So they're the key messages that I hope people pick up from that work, but I'm happy to take any questions or comments or observations. Kirsten, if you want to deal with it, or you want to moderate that, or I'm happy to answer any questions people may have.
Thank you, Paul. So does anyone have any questions directly for Paul about the document that's provided, or comments? Please just start speaking if you do, because obviously with the share screen, we can only see a small number of faces.
And I'm on a mobile phone, so I see even less. I'll take silence as consent.
Okay, yeah, I think that's fair. So as Paul said, this is an important part of thinking about our strategic plan going forward, and in terms of how we support our members, but also the financial aspects of, really important in terms of how we maintain the association. What is obviously a very uncertain time at the moment. So thank you very much, Paul, for all your work on this, which is obviously supported by all of Penny's enormous work on this. I'm going to move on now to our conference reports, and we're back to Paul Whitelaw because we did have our first ever online CAUTHE organised conference this year in 2021. And Mariana was the scientific chair, Paul was the operations chair. So Paul is going to deliver the report. I'll hand back to you, Paul.
Terrific, thanks, Kirsten. So again, the report is there. I'll take it as read. The key lessons are that it was an incredibly challenging exercise. We went literally from zero to a full online conference in a very, very short time frame. It provided or sort of confronted us with a number of challenges. I would be absolutely remiss to not formally acknowledge the heroic work of Penny and our colleagues on the organising committee in standing up the conference. Mariana and her team on the scientific committee did an excellent job as well. We were fully online. It was a very, as I said, a very, very steep learning curve. There were things we clearly didn't get right, but we've learnt from that, and we'll bring those learnings forward into the online component of the 2022 conference. But you'll see there that the conference achieved a number of significant goals. We had an incredibly high number of delegates, an extraordinarily high percentage of international delegates and international papers. We ended up with the highest number of members on record, which again comes back to my earlier comment about the conference driving membership. And so we've always got to keep that in the forefront of our thinking. And most importantly, we put in place a lot of the infrastructure, the digital infrastructure to support not just the conference, but also CAUTHE's ongoing administration. So it was an exercise not just in running an online conference for the very first time, but also building the capacity and the infrastructure for us to move more of the organisation online and provide an online option for future conferences. Again, Kirsten, I'm working on the assumption that colleagues have had a chance to read the report. I'm happy to take any questions or comments or observations that people may have. If there's anything specifically about the technology in 2022, I'll defer those responses until you've spoken, Kirsten, about the upcoming conference.
Thank you, Paul.
Questions and comments? Yep.
Are there any comments or questions about the 2021 conference?
Yeah, I'd just like to make a comment. Firstly, Paul and to Mariana and everybody who was involved in putting it together. It was extraordinarily successful, considering all the difficulties that we had there. There were a few problems, obviously, with the technology from time to time, but considering that this was sort of starting from ground zero, I just think that the organising committee just did an amazing job, and I think it was successful beyond anybody's wildest dreams. It was a very, very tough call.
Thanks for that, David. And yes, I cannot thank enough Penny and Mariana and our colleagues at Forum Group. But just to put it all in context, at the start of the planning process, we were concerned that we might have as few as 130 delegates and might lose as much as $10,000. We ended up with nearly 300 delegates, 260 of them paying. So we actually doubled the number of paying delegates, and we squeaked out a profit, which is and ended up with high membership. So yeah, you're absolutely right. It was it was a very fortuitous outcome given the circumstances.
Thank you.
May I just consume 1 minute? Well, I don't want to spend time to thank everyone again for that. Just to stress what Paul said before, which I don't know how we can continue the momentum. CAUTHE does drive membership. The online conference has brought many international participants, which I'm not sure how we can maintain them, but it will be a lost opportunity if we don't do it. So the online complementary, I don't know, backup plan for the next years, I think it will need to be considered seriously and very strategically on how we maintain it.
Thank you. Thank you. Good points for both the next conferences, but also maybe to think about in our strategic plan. So how we engage with different kinds of audiences. Any other comments?
Just a very quick one, Kirsten.
Yep.
With that in mind, maybe an idea is to do a survey on what social media channels the members use. So strategically, the next campaign for the conference can be a bit more targeted. Just a thought.
Sure, good idea. We should look back as well, because we did do a members survey about a year ago, or a year and a half ago. So we should have and I can't remember how far we covered social media in that, but we should have a quick look back at that as well, just to see if that can give us some insights. So that's really helpful. Thank you, everyone. So I'm going to pass on now in terms of the next conference. Although it's got my name against it, I've got very little to do with this. So I'm actually going to pass on to Leonie Loxton-Finney, who I can see here in the beautiful Gold Coast, who will be the 2022 conference chair. And I'm going to pass on to her to tell you all about their plans.
Thank you, Kirsten, and thank you, everyone. A great opportunity for us to be presenting today. And I'm here with colleagues also from Griffith University, who I'll introduce to you at a later point in the presentation. I'm just going to run you through an overview of our planning to date for the conference, and we're very happy to take any questions via chat or at the end of the presentation. So I'll get underway. I hope you can hear me okay, and I will share my screen. Just 1 second. There we go. So I'm hoping everyone can see the presentation. Is that correct?
All good, Leonie.
All good. Thanks, Barry. Thank you very much. So really just thank you very much to the executive for giving us the opportunity today to present about the conference. The team at Griffith University are very, very excited to be hosting the CAUTHE conference in 2022. Kirsten, as you noted it earlier in your presentation, it has been a while since we have hosted the CAUTHE conference, so we're very happy that it is coming back to Griffith. So just a bit of firstly, before I talk a little bit about the university, just to once again acknowledgement of country. Griffith University acknowledges the traditional custodians of the land on which we are meeting, and pays respect to all elders past and present, and extends that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. To give you a little bit of a background, I won't spend too much time at this. This is really about Griffith and the key statistics about the university. We're very happy to share this presentation with CAUTHE colleagues subsequent to today, so I might just skip over that one. Importantly, the conference is being hosted by the Department of Tourism, Sport and Hotel Management. So some key details around the department and of course our standing in Australia and also internationally. So in terms of the ranking, we are ranked first in Australia according to the Shanghai ranking, and also well above world standard in terms of our research output. We are a big department within Griffith Business School. We have 29 academic staff. We have 37 HDRs associated with the department. And we are led currently, and hopefully maybe into the future, by our colleague, Professor Charles CAUTHE, who is with us today. Charles, do you want to turn your video on and maybe wave or say hello to everyone for us? Put him on the spot. Okay, we'll come back to that a little bit later. So we do think it's timely for us to be hosting the CAUTHE conference and certainly to be bringing the CAUTHE conference back as a face-to-face conference. I know we've all been missing that opportunity. The online conference this year was fantastic, but I think we do consider that the face-to-face component is, of course, very important with CAUTHE conferences. So we really want to bring that back as a key component of the conference in 2022. So some key, or I suppose the overarching details about the conference. We'll be hosting the conference early in February, from Monday the 7th of February through to Wednesday the 9th of February in 2022. The venue for the conference, it is a Griffith University venue. We're very conscious, of course, about running a cost-effective conference. So the Queensland Conservatorium is one of Griffith University's campuses. It is centrally located in the South Bank area of Brisbane. Very nice location, very close to public transport and very close also to Brisbane CBD. We are proposing to run a three-day program as part of the conference. So this is I suppose, a cut down version of the typical 4-day CAUTHE conference with the PhD HDR workshop, typically as the first day. As part of that, we have agreed with CAUTHE that we will not be scheduling as part of the conference proper some of the activities that are typically associated with the conference. And those include the AGM, the special interest groups, for example. We will look to, if CAUTHE wishes to host those events adjacent to the conference, we will look to, of course, assist with those scheduling issues and to find space at our South Bank campus. I think picking up on Mariana's point from just earlier, we certainly will be delivering the conference in a very much hybrid mode. We've been trying to get our head around what that actually means in having face-to-face and also the online component. But we recognise that we also will need to, in the case of COVID contingencies and lockdowns and the like, we will need to shift fully online if we need to accommodate those particular requirements. So we're very much in our planning for the conference, keeping in mind that we may need to deliver it as a fully online conference. We're hoping that, of course, will not be the case, but it does mean that there's, I suppose, extra planning considerations around running the conference face-to-face hybrid and also potentially fully online if that eventuates. I should note, and it was probably brought to our attention a little bit late in the piece, but we do acknowledge that Waitangi Day, the New Zealand National Day, is on Sunday the 6th of February. The public holiday for that day is on the Monday the 7th. We're proposing that the conference on Monday the 7th will kick off in the afternoon. We acknowledge that this may inconvenience some of our New Zealand participants, but we hope to minimise that as much as possible. Now, just to highlight our conference organising committee, and our colleagues on the organising committee have really invested very heavily their time, efforts and expertise in relation to the conference. And I think each and every one of them are supported by Charles, who has really championed the conference for us. As Kirsten mentioned, I've taken on the chair role. I'm very happy to do so. For my colleagues who are on the call, maybe once again, if you just show yourself on the screen and maybe wave and say hello. But our scientific committee is being led by Associate Professor Brent Moyle and Dr. Anna Kral. Our programming committee is being chaired by Dr. Elaine Yang. Our venues chair is Dr. Barry Fraser. And our chair for sponsorship and marketing is Associate Professor Kevin Philo. So I think most of them are on the call today. So please say hello to them. They're all doing a fantastic job. And I should highlight also that other colleagues within our department, THS, are also supporting each and every one of these chair roles. So we've had really good support from across the entire department. And the entire department is very excited about the prospect of hosting the CAUTHE conference in 2022. In terms of our theme and our tracks, so our theme is shaping the next normal in tourism, hospitality and events. We're very conscious that Mariana's call for the JHTM hackathon, which has just recently been promoted, is quite similar. That's the new normal. I think we're taking into account with the next normal that unfortunately, we're still in the process of dealing with COVID and what that next normal might be for tourism, hospitality and events, of course, is still very much up for debate. In terms of our tracks, we wanted to do something a little bit different and move away maybe from the more disciplinary based tracks of the past. So rather than having one on tourism, events, hospitality, for example. So our tracks are really designed to encourage as much as possible interdisciplinary research or interdisciplinary thinking in terms of people, place, planet, the pandemic. We can't get away from that one, promotion, but also policy and planning. So our full paper deadlines are there. We will look to promote those very shortly. And more likely that they will move closer to the conference date, but for you to, of course, be aware of them at this stage. So I'm not going to present the full program at this stage. We have spent significant time developing it, but I just really wanted to focus on some key highlights in relation to the program. So we're focusing on at least 2 keynotes and the topics for consideration that we've come up with for those keynotes are on the slide. We really are hoping to target at least 1 industry speaker for a keynote and also an academic colleague to do the other keynote. And of course, with all of our speakers, we'll keep in mind gender balance and other diversity issues. We're also hoping to have at least 2 panels and once again, a mix of industry and academic colleagues. And because, of course, we're in Brisbane, we can't avoid the Olympics in 2032, but the other panel is focusing on building back better. Other program highlights, we will run the PhD, ECR, MCA workshops on day 1. So keeping in mind that we're running a 3-day conference, not the 4-day conference. It will be a cut down version, so a half-day program for the PhD, ECR, MCA workshop. That means on day 1, our actual formal conference welcome and opening will occur in the afternoon of day 1. So we have very much consolidated the activity that would take place over the 4-day typical CAUTHE face-to-face conference into the 3-day program. Of course, as always, we need to keep the very popular Great Debate, and that will occur on day 3. We thought we would, keeping in line with wanting to try new things, we thought we would, of course, run with the traditional concurrent sessions, but also trial Ignite talks, so put that out as an option to potential speakers, which would be a shorter presentation and also the 5-minute typical Q&A format. And of course, the poster session will also run on day 2. So getting to the more exciting stuff in terms of our conference venue and our social programs. As I mentioned, we'll be hosting this at the Conservatorium. And as I mentioned, we will make this presentation available to colleagues afterwards. If you wish to click on the link there, there's actually a virtual experience of the Queensland Conservatorium. So that can give you some sense, particularly if you're interstate or if you're not familiar with the Conservatorium, just what the venue looks like in reality. I have mentioned it's centrally located in the South Bank precinct. And what really attracted us about hosting at the Conservatorium is it's a venue that our own colleagues here at Griffith are not necessarily familiar with. So hopefully that will give them the sense that they're at a conference. But also this was a very self-contained venue. So the fact that the conference will be held over the 2 levels of the one venue, and that was quite attractive to us in terms of not having people having to move around, for example, between multiple buildings. The venue is fully accessible, and I'll point out and show you on the map a little bit later just where it is located in relation to South Bank. Our social functions, of course, this is maybe of more interest, I'm not sure. We are proposing to hold the welcome function or the welcome drinks function on Monday, the 7th of February. We have put a provisional hold on the QA Goma rooftop terrace. So this is the Gallery of Modern Art in Brisbane. It overlooks the Brisbane River, really breathtaking views of the Brisbane River. And of course, we'll be holding it at night. So that will really give you those views back to the Brisbane city and the Brisbane River. Very much one of the other key considerations is the venue is a 10-minute, very comfortable walk from the Conservatorium and a very pleasant walk as well through the South Bank precinct. The gala dinner to be held on the last night of the conference. So we're proposing that this will take place on Wednesday, the 9th of February, 2022. Will be held at the Howard Smith Wharfs, which, if you're familiar or not with the Brisbane area and what's been happening in the Brisbane area in recent years, this is an area that has been recently redeveloped. It's very much a leisure precinct. So we are hosting at the River Shed East. And just to give you an insight, the outlook from that venue, but also the view from the terrace is depicted there in the photos. So once again, showcasing the Brisbane River, showcasing the best that Brisbane has to offer. Fantastic views back, looking across the city. So we're very excited to be hosting the gala dinner at that particular venue too. We have been informed, and we're very hopeful, that there will be a ferry terminal, a brand new ferry terminal due for completion in December of this year. And we're hoping that will occur, and that will then give very easy access from South Bank straight across to the Howard Smith Wharfs precinct. So that is our gala dinner. And just to highlight, and as I suggested, our South Bank venues, or at least, are in very close proximity. So we'll highlight, I think, hopefully. So we have the South Brisbane railway station here, which is in very close proximity to the Queensland Conservatorium. The ferry terminals, which would enable you to catch the ferry, of course, across to Howard Smith Wharfs or Eagle Street Pier, or across to Brisbane CBD. And I'm sorry, it's just to the left of my screen. And we have here the Gallery of Modern Art, so Goma. So this is where we'll be hosting our welcome function. The all-important registration rates. We are conscious that we are not running the full 4-day program, so we have reduced the conference rates accordingly, in saying that we have been, I should say, costing for the delivery of the conference in a hybrid mode, but also fully online. So there are additional costs associated with that, which we have taken into account. So on the screen here, you'll see the figures that relate to the inclusion of the CAUTHE membership fee with GST, or the price without the CAUTHE membership and the GST included. And I'm sure you'll all agree, just at face value, you can see we're dealing with a number of membership categories. And we're also dealing with early bird and full price, and also the online component only. So we have needed to think quite carefully around those rates that we're charging to cover our variable and of course our fixed costs of running this particular event. And finally, just to give you a sense of, once again, how centrally located South Bank is. And this is, I think, a pic from bookings.com for the particular dates of our conference, so 7th to 9th February 2022. And you can see all the white dots there indicating significant available accommodation and a range of different accommodation types from 3 to 5 star. However, if you don't want to stay at the South Bank precinct, there is also significant accommodation stock located in Brisbane CBD and easily accessible via the Goodwill Bridge, which is a pedestrian bridge, or the key other bridge across the Brisbane River, which escapes my recollection at this time. So in terms of our next steps, as I said, we're very excited to be hosting the 2022 conference. And hopefully this presentation has given you a bit of a taste of our thinking around the conference and the extent of planning we've put to date in terms of the conference development. We are hoping to have our website up by mid-August and also to be releasing information about our keynotes and panelists shortly after. So please keep your eyes posted for those updates. We'll continue, of course, to promote those through CAUTHE, through key listservs such as TriNet, for example. But yes, we're very excited. We hope to see you in Brisbane for 2022, February next year. And myself and the team are happy to take any questions at this stage.
Great, thank you so much, Leonie. I think we're all very excited about the opportunity to not just meet face to face, but also to come to beautiful, sunny Brisbane and the South Bank, which would be fabulous. I've seen there's lots of great comments in the chat. Are there any specific questions?
Do we have any of the information in regards to the fees, etc., already on our website so that we can perhaps approach a few of our colleagues with this, or is that going to be released a little bit later?
It will be a little bit later. We're just awaiting one final hurdle internally we need a level of sign off. We're waiting for that, then we'll be full steam ahead. We have been guaranteed that that will occur, but we just sort of at that little internal roadblock at this time. But as soon as we get that go ahead, we'll proceed and we'll make sure that all of this information is publicly available. Yes.
Leonie, when you put in a question in the chat as well.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Yeah, about the lead time required.
It's just a thought. It's not a negative thing. It was just a thought as you were going along. I'm thinking, oh, because I'm in Queensland, that's fine, but I'm not in Brisbane. So, I need to know that stuff. Yeah.
I would make one comment on that, and obviously we would have to make a decision on when and if we had to move the conference fully online based on what was happening at the time. One of the things I would emphasise in regards to accommodation would be obviously delegates looking to book accommodation to book with the availability to be cancelled up until short notice. And just from my own looking around over the last couple of weeks for accommodation, I am finding that most hotels now have been very flexible in terms of that. So I think
good. It was just something I thought should be just people should bear in mind. That's all. No big deal. Yep. Thank you.
I think that's a great point. And in terms of where we were at with our planning, given the recent little bit of a COVID scare, whilst it's devastating, as Kirsten said, all of these impacts, it did give us that sort of insight that this could come back at any stage. So we have also, in terms of our budgeting, made sure, going back to all of our suppliers, checking on cancellation clauses, etc., etc. I should point out we do or will have an MOU with CAUTHE to deliver the conference. And within that MOU, there is actually a stipulated period of time in terms of, I can't remember the actual time frame, but there's a time frame where the conference will transition fully online. So that will be made very clear, of course, well ahead. So it won't be the fact that we'll get, you know, a couple of days out and, oh, it's going online. We would get to a point, I can't remember the exact timeline, but it would be significantly in advance of the conference occurring.
Yes, so that timeline is set out in the memorandum of understanding that we've drawn up with Griffith. So you can do that. Okay, we've got a couple of other comments. Just I think just a note here from Jenny about managing the timing with different types of presentations, which I'm sure you've considered.
Yes.
So I'll just make a quick point on that one.
Thanks, Barry.
With the main room and the breakout rooms that we've got, they are over 2 floors, but there is a staircase that takes you nicely between the 2 floors, but there's also an elevator as well. So based on past conferences, when there has been a considerable wait sometimes for elevators and that sort of thing, we would be able to alleviate this time because most people will be able to access the stairs, and it will probably end up being quicker movement between various breakout rooms as well.
And probably just to highlight, you know, for all of our colleagues, there may still be COVID restrictions in place. So that will mean that even if there still are, it might be that the conference will still be slightly different to what you're used to if it's face-to-face. So for example, the lift example is a good one. You know, you may be only able to have a certain number of people in the lift at the time. The venue is accessible, but you know, we'll also need to work around those sort of protocols as well. But yes, the venue is fully accessible. The other option we looked at was our South Bank campus proper, and that would have meant, I should say, movement between multiple buildings. And one of the venues that we're looking for the welcome function, which was fantastic and actually on site at our campus. Very small lift space, and it would have made getting people up to that particular location quite difficult. So we have kept accessibility in mind in determining all the key venues for the conference.
Leonie, sorry, can I just ask a question? I know I made a sort of a remark about John Coates putting Anastasia in mind, but I just on a serious basis, are you considering having the Queensland government and Queensland tourism perhaps having some buy-in into this, because that may, the fact that this is 10 years out from the Olympics, the announcement's been made, it could actually be quite a good strategic thing to do to get the Queensland government as a sponsor or supporter of this, particularly, you know, as they're trying to allegedly build back tourism. And I think, can I just say also too, the conference that you've got planned sounds absolutely fantastic. So it's a great venue. Good on you. It's great.
Thanks, David. We do have a hit list of industry speakers that we're hoping to target, many of whom are within Queensland, but we're also conscious that we don't want the conference to be all Queensland focused. So we are keeping that in mind. But we really do want to have a mix of industry and academic colleagues. Elaine, do you maybe want to add to that? I'm not sure if you do. Elaine is heading up our programming committee.
Yeah, sure. We have a list of proposed speakers and panel members already. And as Leonie said, we do want to showcase Queensland and using Queensland as a case study of building back better, and also with the Olympic bid. But once we have the list finalized, we will announce end of August.
Thanks, Elaine.
Okay, thank you. Thanks very much to the Griffith team, and thank you, Leonie, for presenting that. So it's now official that we will be going to Griffith in 2022. Very excited and look forward to hearing more details about it. That's fantastic. So very, very pleased. Okay, so
thanks, Jane.
So we have, I'm just going to offer us a 1-minute break, because this is break, you will see in the schedule, and because I want to run and get myself a cup of tea. So use this 1 minute to get a cup of tea, take a comfort break, and we'll be back with you very shortly. Or use this time to have a quick chat with colleagues who you haven't seen for a very long time. So I'll be very quick.
Oh, by the way, Jenny, congratulations on your fantastic presentation a few days ago. I really enjoyed it.
Rankings have gone up. We have a strong team to support the journal. This has been restructured. The editorial board has been updated. We do this every 2 years. We have an associate editor, Edmund, replacing Leonie. We have a new books review editor. We have the social media engagement officer. So I would like to thank everyone working on that. We have done a lot of progress on the 2 events that the journal usually hosts every year. This year we're going online for the obvious reasons. I hope you have seen the call of papers or registrations, and please make sure you register because the events are free. Anyone can join. We might have a problem in terms of how many people we can accept to be on real time. Maybe we need to cap it to 300, we will see. So please register on time. Anyone else will have just access to the video recordings. I would like also to thank Paul for considering the journal as a strategic item on the budget. I think it is important to invest on the journal or to help it grow. And the other issue which I would like to highlight, which probably you have seen it from my report, in general, I have been experiencing problems in inverted commas with the special issues given to the CAUTHE conference. The issues and concerns is that every year we had issues to find people to volunteer to be guest editors, and we also had issues to find sufficient enough quality papers to make a full special issue. Because of all that, the special issues have been facing delays. People were late, not committed, I don't know, not interested, not enough papers. There has been a misconception that because probably it's a special issue, we can accept papers that they are substandards. Sorry, I don't think this is an appropriate way to perceive it. If we want to maintain the standards and the reputation of the journal, we have to treat every single paper equally, fair and transparent as every single paper submitted for a normal issue. And that's what I have been doing so far. I have been accused for that because people perceive that special issues, they can be special, but I don't think that's appropriate. I think the way forward might be, and I don't know, I will consult other associate editors, is not to pushing it too much to have a special issue from the CAUTHE conference because it hasn't worked so far. Maybe we can offer the option that anyone who might be interested, he or she can submit the paper for a very fast review process to be considered in a normal issue. So we still keep the relationship with CAUTHE and we offer the opportunity and the interest to anyone to publish in the journal. But that's a suggestion, but I don't know what the solution will be, but I think we really need to address this issue.
Okay, Mariana, did you want to invite people to provide comments now, or do you want them to?
Good question. Or shall I go on with the case study and?
Yeah, carry on, and then we'll take them all at the end.
Okay, well, I will be very quick with the case study project. We have submitted the final book. We just found out that we have an ISBN number and we are promoted on Springer website. We still haven't received the page proofs, but I hope we will get them quickly. At least Springer is pushing the publication of the paper, of the book. They gave us a date around October. And I'm in the process of writing the next book proposal, because I think it's a good idea to continue this momentum and have a second version of the project as well. We had received quite a lot of case studies this time, well, not this time, 2 years ago. I think people have become aware. They will appreciate it more when they get the book and see how useful case studies are, or how they can also write one. We can continue with online workshops, how to write and use case studies as we did before. And I hope the new one will get a very good acceptance as the previous one. So
thank you, Mariana.
If
and I think
anyone would like, to comment any ideas, please, I would value your opinion.
Great, thank you. Are there any questions or comments for Mariana about any of the points in her report? I guess is, do we have anyone from the Griffith team still on the call? It's a bit hard for me to check all our participants. Charles is here, but is
I think Charles's audio is not working.
all right. Yeah, I don't know, Leonie, if you wanted to comment on anything related to the comments about the special issue.
I mean, Mariana, we'd be happy to explore options with you. I mean, I think we're keen that there be a special issue. And maybe if I put you in contact with Brent and Anna, who are chairing our scientific committee, then we can have a discussion around that. I think we see it as being one of the benefits of hosting the conference, particularly.
Okay, well, if there is somebody to drive it and is committed,
sure.
Very good to hear, because so far that was also one of the issues that I had to address in the past. So, and the sooner we do it, the better, because even if you want to open up the call of papers to the broader audience, because usually in CAUTHE we don't have good quality, sufficient numbers, I'm really happy to even think about this or consider.
Sure. I'll put you in contact with Brent and also with Anna, and we'll have a conversation. Thank you.
Good.
Could I just add, sorry, the audio is working now. Could I just add, look, I think it's important, but Mariana, I don't know if we'll be able to resolve the issues you've had. I think that there'll be standard issues there, but certainly there should be a commitment. And I know that there's probably some financial commitment that needs to be made towards that, and we can probably do that too, because I think such special editions would be useful if we can manage to get them out. But I agree, the quality's got to be there, otherwise there's no point.
No, I would love to have a special issue, but for the last 5 years, it's me, the bad guy or the stressed guy pushing people rather than the other way around,
Well, look, we'll have the special issue, but you could still be the bad, guy, I suppose. Yeah, yeah.
Poor Mariana. Worked so hard.
Picture here, and Madeline and I are editing the special issue for this year's, for last year's CAUTHE conference. And I have to say that the referees that we've asked for many of the papers are not particularly impressed with the quality of the paper. And they've gone through 2 or 3 vets to pull out what were the stronger papers from the CAUTHE conference and then send them out to the refereeing process. So I support Mariana's comments that this year especially, it's going to be a challenge, I think, to come out with a full special issue. And I hope that's just a function of COVID and not a comment on the quality of the refereed or working papers submitted to CAUTHE.
Yeah. No, it's, how can I say, it has always been hard to find enough papers for a full special issue for CAUTHE, and that's why I was always stressing to guest editors, open it up. Probably not before the conference, but definitely after. Otherwise, yes, we're really struggling to get enough papers.
Okay, well, thanks very much. That it looks a bit more promising, but I think there's some issues there that the conference committee will need to iron out with Mariana to progress this. We've just got a minute or two left. So were there any more comments or questions on any of the other points that were raised in Mariana's report? Okay, great. I'm going to take that. We're all very happy. Mariana does an enormous amount of work here, and we can really see how the journal has significantly grown in its quality and in its profile over the past few years. So thank you so much for your work on that.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks, I appreciate it, because the journal has received good support from the community, and I think that needs to be said.
Thank you. No, it is. I think it's wonderful. It represents our members and our association, as well as having that international profile. It's fantastic to have both. I'm going to move on now to PhD scholar activities, and Ina Reichenberger will lead this along with our new PhD representative, Jess Sang-Yong. So very, very excited. This obviously is Jess's first mid-year meeting.
Thank you so much for warm welcoming again. I'd like to speak about these HR initiatives that I brought up from a month ago. So I guess that there's no Ina here today, right?
I'm here.
Oh, Ina's here. Oh, okay.
I'm here. I was just wondering if I could just say a couple of words about the PhD ECR workshop that we held this year, which might perhaps be helpful for the Griffith team organizing it then, and then hand over to you to talk quickly about the HDR conference and the mentoring activity. Is that all right?
Yes.
Yes. All right. So the online PhD ACR workshop this year, we had a bit of a tighter program as well, quite well attended with 68 participants. As usual, the small mentoring groups were the highest rated parts of the program, which I'm pretty certain Griffith would like to keep in the program as well. The aspects that weren't rated quite as favorably, unfortunately, were the networking opportunities within the PhD ECR day, as well as the online interaction quality. So we had a fairly tight program with panel discussions and then the smaller mentoring groups. But outside of these mentoring groups, there really wasn't a lot of opportunity for our PhD ECR participants to connect with each other and expand their networks. And this, especially if it's a hybrid type of delivery, is probably something that would be great if the Griffith team could look at in a bit more detail on how to design that in a more inclusive and a more interactive way in the future. And since then, well, we've welcomed Jess as our newest PhD representative. She's currently working with SMANS as well as ANSOS to deliver a co-branded HDR conference, which was recently advertised in the newsletter. And Jess has also put forward a proposal to establish a mentoring program as part of CAUTHE. And I'll just hand over to Jess to let her introduce herself properly and tell you a little bit more about what we have in mind with the mentoring.
Thank you, Ina. I guess I didn't find your name because I was looking for Ina particularly, and it was Karen and Ina. Now I find you on here. And thanks so much for all these warm welcoming gestures. And yes, I brought these mentoring initiatives since I was very inspired and I had so much help from connecting with other people, apart from my supervisors and my colleagues. And considering the time of this consecutive lockdowns, many students, like many people also, including students, I guess they have lost a lot of opportunities to connect and then have a valuable relationship with other people. So these mentoring initiatives, I suggest that it will be really great for them to get fresh eyes from the third eyes and maybe connect, created really valuable networks between the academics and students. I guess.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it.
Thank you. Thanks very much. So I think these are both very exciting. I'm very, very excited that we can continue our collaboration with SMANZ and ANZLS. That's so important. But also I'm very excited about this new opportunity because I know a number of professional associations provide mentoring opportunities, and we do provide that as Ina's just talked about at the conference as part of the workshop. But to have that ongoing support, I think, is a little bit different, and also this is more of a one-to-one rather than at as we know, it's more small group at the conference. So are there any comments or questions for Jess or Ina about any of the items they've covered?
Maybe for Ina. Ina, has Jess been? Let me take a step back. Can we get a copy of that report firstly? That would be really helpful. I'm not sure if it's come across our radar at this stage, but
it's online as part of the meeting documents for today. So that's a summary of the feedback, the ratings, and the recommendations.
Right. Thank you very much, Ina. Thank you. We'll take that on board. I think that's great feedback, and we'll try and certainly. Probably one thing I didn't raise during my presentation is that we will look for opportunities to ensure engagement across the online and also the face-to-face cohort of the conference. We think that's really important. But I did have a question for anyone on the CAUTHE executive. Apart from Jess, is there anyone else we should be engaging with in relation to the PhD ECR workshop?
Me.
Ina.
Yourself, Ina.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ina's the kind of academic volunteer, and Jess is the PhD student volunteer.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. And I'll ask Elaine to touch base with you just in relation to our plans, and we can have a conversation.
That would be fantastic. Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Any other comments or questions anyone would like to make? Okay, well, that all sounds fantastic and so pleased. And I mean, Jess has only been on board with us for, just over a month, and she's already coming up with these fantastic proposals. So just so pleased to have you on board, Jess. Wonderful. So watch out for information about that coming to you. Okay, our next item is the Fellows Report. I want to invite Bob McKercher, who is the one of the new chairs of the Fellows, to give his report.
Thank you, Kirsten. And I notice I have an hour and 10 minutes in the agenda, so I will speak very slowly.
Updated agenda, Bob. I think we've given you 10 minutes. Sorry, you'll have to condense it and talk a bit more quickly.
Good, that's much better. The report has been tabled, and there's really very little to add to the report. We all are saddened by the loss of Phil, and he's left a huge gap in CAUTHE, in Australia, and in tourism academia around the world. And I think we're still reeling from that to some extent. Betty and I have volunteered to take over as the co-old guys within CAUTHE, and Betty's away on her big lap around Australia. So I'm kind of handling the details for the next little while. Other than that, really there are only a couple of things that are worth mentioning, and Ming Cheng won the CAUTHE Fellows Award. Importantly, long overdue, Candice Harris has been elected as a fellow. She's been very active in CAUTHE for a long time. And Bruce Prideaux, in his first nomination, was also elected. And I think it's worthwhile mentioning that both of them were elected unanimously by the fellows. And the other things that we've done is we've changed the criteria for the CAUTHE Fellows Award to highlight the fact that contribution to CAUTHE has to be the first criterion that's considered, and then being recognized as an expert in the field, either in terms of teaching or research or both. And it just brings to the fore the fact that as a CAUTHE fellow, you have to have played a significant role in CAUTHE over a longer period of time. And with that, I don't think there's anything more to add. You can read the report at your leisure. And so my hour and 10 minutes has been a microwave hour and 10 minutes.
Okay, thank you very much, Bob. Are there any comments or questions for Bob?
I've just got a comment, Kirsten. Thanks, Bob. That's fantastic news about the CAUTHE Fellows. So that's something we should definitely feature in the newsletter. Has that announcement been promoted beyond today, or was this the first public announcement?
The fellows have been notified,
Okay.
but I don't think any formal notification has come out. And I guess Penny can answer that question better than me.
Well, if I just step in and say that, no, this is the first time it's been announced.
Okay.
And I also want to acknowledge that one of our new fellows, Bruce Prideaux, has just logged on. So I wanted to say a big congratulations to Bruce.
Yes.
Very well deserved. So
absolutely.
So I'm not sure if Candice is able to join us. So we'll see, but we will obviously be making this announcement. This is all new here. So the conference, the new fellows, it's all the news coming through from the mid-year meeting. So yes, very exciting to have some new fellows, and especially people who've, as Bruce said, as Bob said, have made huge contributions to both CAUTHE, but also to the fields within which we work as well, which I think is really important to acknowledge that. So thank you very much. I don't think there were any other comments other than lots of obviously congratulations and
And
things.
I had one more comment, Kirsten.
Sure. Yes, you've still got a bit of time.
Okay, I think I was the only person here who was at the founding meetings of CAUTHE. And we spent a long time debating whether or not it's CAUTHE or CAUTHE or CAUTHE, and we decided it was CAUTHE, as in OW, rather than CAUTHE.
Okay, well, I've been saying CAUTHE for about 15 years, and I'm going to say a rose by any other name would smell as sweet. So we are we're an inclusive organization, and we take all sorts of pronunciations which vaguely get like that. And some of you will know, I know none of you don't know me that well, but some of you will know that I get called Karen a lot. That's which I know Karen Smith is falling around laughing because she knows how often I get called Karen by people even responding to messages I've sent them, which say from Kirsten. So I'm quite happy to take any vague approximation of Kirsten, Kristen, Kirsty, whatever. If it's vaguely like my name and it's not Karen, I'll take it. So there we are. So we have official pronunciation guidelines from the chair of our fellows, and we have lots of alternatives which we will accept if they're vaguely like the association. So, but useful to say that. So I quite like Paul's comment, which is quite funny in the chat if you're following it. Okay, that's probably the most controversial issue and comment of today's meeting, but I will now move on. Now that I can see that she's falling around laughing and is going to struggle to do this, I'm now going to move on to Karen Smith and to Wendy Hillman, who will be presenting our SIG discussion paper. And Karen and Wendy have done a lot of work on, Wendy's been our SIG coordinator for a number of years now, and Karen and Wendy have done a lot of work in the past year to look at how we can reinvigorate our SIG program, we can grow it, what can we do to really add value for our members through the SIGs, and particularly noting that in our fairly recent member survey, SIGs came out as an issue that was important to members, and we wanted to look at how we could further support it. So I'm going to pass on now to Wendy and Karen. Thank you very much.
So thank you, Karen, I feel I should say. Hi, everyone. I think I'm going first and Wendy's going to pop in. And actually, more seriously, I did want to start with some acknowledgements and thank yous, because I think we've actually got all but 3 of our SIG leaders here in the conference call today. And I think that's really important because our SIGs operate through the leadership of our members. So I'd like to shout out to Jenny and Erica from the Critical Approaches, and the third leader of that is our new fellow, Candice Harris. We've got Leonie, I'm presuming Martin's not phoning in from the middle of the night in Scotland, who co-coordinate event studies. We've got Mariana, who coordinates the ICT and SIG with Ian Yeoman, my colleague here in New Zealand. We've got David here from the Risk Crisis Recovery. I don't think we have Joe Fountain on the line, another of our New Zealand SIG leaders. And then we've got a full complement from learning and teaching and learning and SIG as well, here, Tamara and Nikki. And I'd like to just recognise their leadership in their particular SIGs. And one of the things we're going to be talking about today is that opportunity to support our SIG leaders, but also to recognise them in some different ways as well. And also thank Wendy for her leadership as the SIG coordinator and their representative on the executive. So as Kirsten said that earlier, that the membership survey we did in 2019 did look at the benefits and importance of the different benefits that CAUTHE provides to our members. SIGs was seen as both an important benefit and something people valued that CAUTHE did, but there was a much lower level of engagement in terms of actual membership of those SIGs. So we, as part of the recommendations from that survey, the report that Edmund and I produced and presented way back when we were in at AUT pre-COVID, or just as it was emerging, one of the recommendations there was to look at SIGs and look at what we might do to further develop them. So again, there is a paper on the Dropbox. I'd be very impressed if you got through all of the papers, the very last one about the discussion paper on SIGs, but if you did, thank you. But I have just put a bit of a summary there of the 6 recommendations that we have. We have the first 3 are very much about further development of CAUTHE SIGs and also the leadership. So opportunities to bring our SIG leaders together and also engage more with the executive so we can support them and help them develop their SIGs. We've also, number 4, put there the possible development or encouraging the possible development of new SIGs. And potentially that could also include maybe a special interest group for our PhD students. And then looking at some opportunities around partnerships. Many of both our kindred associations, but other international associations also have SIGs, or sometimes they're called other things, thematic groups. And we think there's some opportunities to collaborate there. And then finally, a bit of a system change in order to introduce SIG enrolment into our membership or conference registration or renewal forms to promote awareness and engagement with SIGs through by our members, but also to generate better information about which members are involved in the various SIGs. So I'm not sure if Wendy's got anything to add at this point, but I know we're both interested in getting some feedback. This has been presented to the exec already, but we're interested in feedback from the membership, and we've also circulated this to the SIG leaders as well.
That's right. Thanks, Karen, that we have done that. So maybe it's time we circulated it to all the members, I think, maybe through the SIG coordinators or maybe just through Penny, I'm not sure. So yeah, we came to the conclusion that the SIGs could be more involved, if you like, in things to do around the conference and in the organisation. It's great that we have SIGs, and there are many other SIGs and thematic groups in other organisations. Atlas and another one overseas, where is it? And it's all
the Academy of Management, isn't it?
Yeah, the Academy of Management. They have enormous amounts of SIGs, like Human Resources, International Management, the Academy of Marketing. They have Gender and Diversity in Organisations. Academy of Marketing have Entrepreneurial and Small Business Marketing. They have Place Marketing and Branding, Political Marketing. ANZELs have Health and Leisure. Interestingly, they only have 1. ANZAM has 1, 2, 3, 5, Emotion and Cognition. ANZMAP is yet to establish one. But Atlas, the Association for Tourism and Leisure Education and Research, has a number including cultural tourism, gastronomy and tourism, business tourism, events, volunteer tourism, dark tourism, heritage tourism and education, space-place mobilities, urban, visual, climate change and tourism. They have a number of different SIGs. And SMANZ, bless, they have a mental program. They don't actually have any SIGs as such, but that's, you know, everyone has to start somewhere.
Okay, thank you very much, Karen and Wendy. And I just wanted to note, actually, because it's not in any of the reports here, but Julia Albrecht, who is still here, who's from the University of Otago. So she is our Kindred Association's representative on the executive, and so she has already been talking to our other associations like ANZLS and SMANZ and TEFI about ways in which we can look at some, you know, coordination across the SIGs where there's shared interest. Because clearly, you know, a lot of us work alongside our colleagues who are members of those associations, and some of our members are even members of both. So we have that opportunity. So that's an ongoing piece of work which we will need to translate into some actions and some priorities, which is how we've started to do this. And also in working with the SIG coordinators who would be involved in that. Are there any questions or comments for Wendy or Karen?
Can I just say one thing, if I may? I'm very supportive of the idea of there being some combined events or combined seminars that have been run between the SIGs. I guess particularly because of our preponderant concern about COVID-19 that seems to have gone into pretty much every part of tourism, and so it seems to make sense, you know, certainly from the point of view of the risk crisis and recovery one, we would be we'd look very favourably at perhaps doing some seminars in conjunction with other SIGs. So I'm all for it. Another thing which might be interesting, I heard mentioned about cultural tourism, and yesterday there was an announcement from the World Tourism Association of Culture and Heritage, which now has 20,000 basically people linked into their site, which is extraordinary. And that would be a fantastic organisation perhaps for us to associate with it. The chairperson of that is a guy called Chris Flynn, who used to be running part of for the Asia Pacific, for the Pacific region. But they've been doing some wonderful work that's, I think, very relevant to actually what we're doing here in CAUTHE, and I think that would be, or CAUTHE or whatever we're going to call it. But that would be a very good association perhaps for us to have a link in with.
And I'd just like to acknowledge, and I think we do mention it in the paper itself, we have had previous examples of where the CAUTHE SIGs have collaborated on, say, a sort of seminar event, not just with our kindred associations, but sometimes on an international basis as well. So I think there was a link to a previous SIG, volunteer and tourism SIG, did have a number of events where they did work with, I think it was Atlas's special interest group on volunteering and tourism. So have been examples of that. And so we'd just like to sort of make some of those a little bit more obvious and encourage people to recognise that there are opportunities for that.
One of the things we did come up with was to actually get people to join a SIG when they joined CAUTHE, when they did their CAUTHE membership, and they could choose a SIG or perhaps a number of SIGs. This is isn't written in concrete yet, but it's one of the ideas that we had for actually improving the membership of SIGs.
Can I just ask, Leonie mentioned there would not be a SIG session at the next conference, but maybe unless CAUTHE added that in.
If I could just clarify, so they won't be included. So there are some things that CAUTHE has said they will organise, and to basically make it a little bit easier for the conference organisers, and because they're doing it over limited time. So one of those is the mid-career workshop. because we have one every second year, and we're due to have that. So Naomi Dale, who was on the call and is probably still here, but I can't see her on the screen, will be organising as the executive, and yes, Bob, just some notice, in conjunction with the fellows, will be organising the mid-career researcher workshop. So it's, this is part of our memorandum of understanding. So one of those is the SIGs, that obviously the SIGs are very welcome to organise, to have events, but we can do that. Those might be online events or something that take place not within the conference program. So we're just being aware that because we're trying to make it a shorter conference, to make it less risky, to reduce some of the costs, there are some things that, it would be unfair to try and squeeze them in because they wouldn't get enough time. Yeah. So we're looking at doing those, and some of those might be online.
Okay.
I might just add.
Oh, sorry.
Quite often. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, David. I was just going to add to that. I think certainly a consideration in our planning is also that, many universities have had their budgets cut in terms of research funding, things like that. We're trying to keep it as affordable as possible. And some of those things that are still very important parts of the conference, but are not fundamental to the actual delivering of papers, for example. So as Kirsten suggested, it's not to say that they're not going to go ahead. It's just that Griffith will not be programming as part of the 3-day program overall.
Yeah, all I was going to say is quite a number of CAUTHE conferences, we've actually had the SIG meetings done as kind of after hours events, and they're usually quite well attended. So there's no reason why we can't do that.
That's right. I mean, the SIGs can choose to designate a morning tea or a lunch for their members and say, come and let's all just catch up over lunch. But, we could, when we're face to face, but, we'll do something on the Friday or something online that all the online people can join in with as well.
Yeah,
so
there's nothing, I've done it before, circulate a list of venues and work it out from there. That's, whatever they want to do. Yep.
There's some opportunities there. It is a bit of a trade-off. We're also aware that those of you who regularly attended CAUTHE conferences, which is actually probably everyone on this call, will know that gradually the conferences have got kind of bigger and bigger and bigger. And I mean, they're amazing. And Auckland's conference was epic with so many people, such fantastic events, speakers, all of that was amazing, but it's become something very large to take on for an organizer. And so we're saying, well, given the uncertainty, let's go a little bit back to basics and think about, how we can kind of manage this in a little bit more efficient kind of way.
Can I just ask one thing, just as you're talking about it? Do we know what universities are actually funding funding conference attendance?
It really varies. So it's varying a lot on whether people have some access to some research, research accounts, for example. I know a number of people have talked about that they might expect to self-fund some or part of their attendance at a face-to-face conference. We know that there's restrictions at the moment, particularly we've spoken to colleagues in New Zealand. We've had a small amount of funding at Curtin for an online conference this year, and that's a lot to do with travel restrictions and the happy border closing of our premiere as well, which
Kirsten, just to add in there that we are actually at this stage only budgeting for 120 face-to-face, and if that transitions fully online, we're still covering our costs. So we're not anticipating the 200 to 300 numbers of a normal CAUTHE conference. So we have taken that into consideration.
Yeah, so we're anticipating. Yeah, I mean, really hope, really excited about this, really optimistic, but we do have contingency plans, as Leonie has talked through, and we are planning for a substantially smaller conference, both in terms of the programming, but also the numbers, but to be realistic, given the current situation. Okay, now were there any other, we sort of moved on to talk about some more general issues. Is there anything else that anyone would like to raise related to CAUTHE and its activities? Okay, I'm taking that silence that we're all super happy. We are finishing early because I have been so strict on time, and no one is sad when a meeting finishes early. So that's happy news I can pass on. Oh, I also have a note here that Penny's pointed out that Esther Anderson, who's joined us at the mid-year meeting today, is our newest member of CAUTHE, our newest associate member. So great to have you join. Hello. Welcome to CAUTHE.
Hello.
And very pleased to see everyone. Everyone stay safe, look after yourselves during what is quite, as we said, quite an uncertain time, particularly difficult for some of our colleagues, depending where you are based. I see that New Zealand has now slapped you down. No one's going to New Zealand from Australia anymore for the next 8 weeks. So
8 weeks.
yes, at least 8 weeks. So that's well, won't have the opportunity. So some great news today. All of the events that and activities we're involved in, but particularly wanting to note the HDR conference in August. Watch out for the PhD mentoring program that will be coming up. Very excited announcement about Griffith 2022, so watch out for all the information about that. And finally, just a last, yes, Steffi, Effie, take a screenshot, please do. But last point, which is really important. So congratulations again to our 2 new CAUTHE fellows, to Candice and to Bruce. Very, very exciting news. So stay safe, everyone, and I look forward to seeing you online and maybe even in person over the next few months. Brilliant. Thanks a lot. Bye.